Cathrall had spent his entire life in the great archives of Valther Prime. He was a keeper of old things, a reader of forgotten texts, and a believer in stories that others called dust and nonsense. His scales were pale from years without sunlight, and his 4 eyes were weak from reading ancient words under dim lights. But he loved his work. The past spoke to him in ways the present never could. On this day, he found something that would change everything. Deep in the forbidden section of the archives, behind doors that had not opened in 3,000 years, Cathrall discovered a vault. The seals were old, older than the hegemony itself. When he broke them, dust fell like gray rain, and the smell of ancient paper filled his lungs. Inside were texts written in a language he barely recognized. It took him 6 hours to translate the first page. When he finished, his hands were shaking. The text spoke of a species called humans. According to the ancient writers, humans came from a death world called Earth. This planet had crushing gravity, extreme temperatures, and air that would poison most species. Yet humans thrived there. They built cities. They created art. They waged terrible wars against each other and then made peace. They conquered disease through stubbornness alone. They refused to die, even when the universe demanded it. The ancient texts called them the Pale Wanderers, the Endless Walkers, the ones who would not break. Cathrall read through the night. He learned that 50,000 years ago, the founders of the hegemony had discovered Earth. They watched the humans from orbit, hidden behind cloaking shields. What they saw terrified them. Humans were impossible. They healed from wounds that would kill any other species. They adapted to environments that should have destroyed them. They showed mercy to enemies and then fought wars of extinction in the same generation. They were chaos wrapped in flesh, potential without limit, and the founders knew that one day, these creatures would reach the stars. So they made a decision. They sealed Earth sector behind a wall of monitoring stations. They spread stories throughout the galaxy, turning humans into myths, legends, fairy tales told to frighten children. And for 50,000 years, it worked. Cathrall brought his findings to the Hegemony Council the next morning. The Great Chamber was filled with representatives from all 12 member species. High Chancellor Mordeth sat on his throne of black stone, his crimson eyes looking down at the young archivist with contempt. "You waste our time with children's stories," Mordeth said. His voice echoed through the chamber like thunder. "Humans are myths, nothing more." "But Chancellor, the texts are clear," Cathrall said. The founders knew they were real. They quarantined an entire sector of space to contain them. "The founders were primitive," Mordeth replied. "They believed in many foolish things. We have evolved beyond such superstition." Admiral Vexter stood from his seat. He was the supreme commander of the Hegemony fleet, a warrior who had fought in 100 battles. His gray skin bore the scars of plasma burns, and his single remaining eye was sharp with intelligence. "Chancellor, I must speak," Vexter said. "In the past month, we have lost contact with 6 patrol fleets near the quarantine zone. 12,000 ships gone without a trace." The chamber fell silent. "Raiders," Mordeth said. "The Outer Rim is full of pirates and scavengers." "No raider fleet could destroy 12,000 warships," Vexter replied. "And 3 days ago, a refugee ship arrived at Station Omega. The survivors claimed they saw ghost ships emerging from the quarantine zone. Ships bearing symbols they did not recognize. Hallucinations," the Chancellor said. "Fear and trauma create false memories." "With respect, Chancellor, I have served the hegemony for 200 years. I have seen things that would break lesser minds. Those refugees were not lying. They were terrified in a way I have never witnessed before." Mordeth waved his hand in dismissal. "We will not chase shadows. The quarantine zone has been silent for 50,000 years. It will remain silent for 50,000 more. This council has real threats to address. The Vraxian horde grows bolder each day. They have destroyed 3 colony worlds in the past year alone. That is where our attention must be. The council voted. The matter was closed. Kethral was sent back to his archives with a warning to speak. No more of human myths, but Kethral could not forget what he had read. And Admiral Vexter could not ignore the missing ships dot far across the galaxy. Beyond the quarantine zone, in a sector of space that no hegemony vessel had entered in 50,000 years. Something was happening. The orbital shipyards of Mars stretched across the red planet's sky like metal rivers. Thousands of ships hung in formation, their hulls gleaming under the distant sun. These were not small vessels. These were dreadnoughts. Warships built for one purpose: to end conflicts permanently. Admiral Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the UEC Resolute, the flagship of the United Earth Confederacy. He was 53 years old, with gray hair cut short and blue eyes that had seen too much death. Behind him, Commander Lisa Grant studied tactical displays with the focus of a predator watching prey. Final count? Morrison asked. 10,000 dreadnoughts ready for deployment, Grant replied. Another 20,000 in reserve across the colonies. All crews at full readiness. Morrison nodded slowly. For 200 years, humanity had prepared for this moment. When the first explorers breached the quarantine zone and found the ancient monitoring stations, they learned the truth. The galaxy knew about Earth. The galaxy had always known. And the galaxy had chosen to imprison humanity behind a wall of lies. Some had wanted revenge. Morrison understood that anger. But cooler heads had prevailed. Revenge was not enough. Humanity would prove itself through action, not rage. A communication officer turned from his console. Admiral, we have received confirmation from Earth Command. Operation First Light is authorized. Morrison closed his eyes for a moment. Generations of humans had lived and died preparing for this day. His own grandfather had commanded the first exploration fleet. His father had designed the Dreadnought program. Now it fell to him to finish what they started. The hegemony has ignored our diplomatic messages for 2 centuries, Morrison said quietly. They think we are fairy tales, stories to frighten children. He opened his eyes and looked at the stars. It is time to show them that myths can bite. Commander Grant smiled grimly. What are your orders, Admiral? Morrison straightened his uniform. Signal all ships. We move at dawn. And may God have mercy on anyone who stands in our way. Across the fleet, 10,000 ships began to wake. Engines hummed with power. Weapons systems came online. And humanity, silent for 50,000 years, prepared to announce its arrival. The galaxy had forgotten them. The galaxy would remember. The colony world of Thesan 4 was burning. Admiral Vexter stood on the bridge of his flagship, watching helplessly as his fleet died around him. 387 ships remained from an original force of 400. In the distance, 2,000 Vraxian warships circled like predators around wounded prey. The Vraxians were monsters. They did not conquer worlds. They consumed them. Their ships were black and twisted, covered in the bones of species they had devoured. Their soldiers ate their enemies alive. In 500 years, they had destroyed over 100 civilizations, and now they had come for Thesan 4. 3 billion souls lived on that world. Men, women, and children of 6 different species. All of them would die before sunrise. Admiral, our shields are failing, his tactical officer reported. We cannot hold much longer. Vexter gripped the command rail with both hands. He had sent emergency transmissions to the Hegemony Council 12 hours ago. The nearest reinforcement fleet was still 11 days away. They would arrive to find nothing but corpses and ash. How long until the evacuation ships can launch? He asked. At least 4 hours. The civilians are still loading. 4 hours. His fleet would be dust in two. On the surface of Thyssen 4, families huddled in evacuation centers. Parents held their children close. The elderly sat in silence, accepting death with quiet dignity. Above them, the sky flickered with explosions as ships died one by one. A young mother named Teshera held her infant daughter against her chest. The baby was crying, hungry and afraid. Teshera had no food left. She had no hope left. All she could do was whisper soft words and wait for the end. Then something strange happened. The sensors on every surviving hegemony ship screamed with warnings. Space itself seemed to tear open as massive energy signatures appeared on every screen. Vexter stared at his displays, unable to understand what he was seeing. Ships. Thousands of ships. 10,000 ships, emerging from jump space in perfect formation. They were unlike anything he had ever seen. Their hulls were gray and angular, built for war without apology. Their weapons bristled from every surface. And on each ship, a symbol he did not recognize. A blue circle containing green and brown shapes, surrounded by stars. A transmission cut through all frequencies. Every ship, every station, every communication device on Thyssen 4 heard the same voice. This is Admiral Jake Morrison of the United Earth Confederacy. We have been watching. We have been waiting. And we do not tolerate genocide. Vraxian fleet, you have 60 seconds to withdraw. This is your only warning. The Vraxians did not withdraw. They had never faced a true challenge. They did not know how to fear. Their commander broadcast a response filled with threats and insults. The Vraxian fleet turned toward the human armada, confident in their numbers. 2,000 against 10,000 seemed like poor odds, but the Vraxians had faced larger fleets before. Numbers meant nothing against their savagery. The human ships did not move. They hung in space like a wall of iron, waiting. The Vraxians fired first. What happened next would be studied in military academies for 10,000 years. The human fleet did not scatter. They did not retreat. They moved as one, a single organism with 10,000 parts. Their weapons fired in coordinated waves, each shot precisely aimed. Vraxian ships exploded by the dozens, then by the hundreds. The battle lasted 87 minutes. When it ended, not a single Vraxian ship remained. 2,000 warships, the pride of the Vraxian horde, had been reduced to burning wreckage. The human fleet had lost 14 vessels. Admiral Vexter could not speak. His crew sat in stunned silence. On the surface of Thyssen 4, people emerged from shelters to see the sky filled with unfamiliar ships. Ships that had saved them. Ships from legends. Teshera looked up at the gray vessels and held her daughter tighter. She did not know who these strangers were, but they had come when no one else would. They had fought when all seemed lost, and her daughter would live to see another sunrise. The human fleet began rescue operations immediately. Small craft launched from every dreadnought, racing toward damaged hegemony ships and escape pods. Human soldiers in sealed armor pulled survivors from burning wreckage. Human medics treated wounds with equipment that seemed almost magical. They saved everyone they could reach, regardless of species. A shuttle from the UEC Resolute approached Vexter's damaged flagship. The Admiral was waiting in the docking bay when the doors opened. Admiral Jake Morrison stepped through, followed by Commander Lisa Grant. Morrison was shorter than Vexter expected. His hair was gray, his face was lined with age, and his eyes carried the weight of command. He looked like a tired old man, but Vexter had just watched this tired old man destroy 2,000 ships in less than 2 hours. "You are real," Vexter whispered. The stories were true. Morrison extended his hand, a human gesture of greeting that Vexter had read about in ancient texts. The Admiral took it, feeling the warmth of human skin for the first time. "We have always been real," Morrison said. "Your ancestors just did not want you to know. They were afraid of what we might become. Why did you help us?" Vexter asked. "The hegemony imprisoned your species for 50,000 years. You owe us nothing but hatred." Commander Grant answered. Her voice was cold but not cruel. "My grandmother commanded an exploration ship 60 years ago. Your border patrols destroyed it without warning. Everyone aboard died. 47 people, including 2 children. Vexter felt shame burn through his chest. "Then why save us?" "Because we are not like you," Grant said. "We do not punish children for the sins of their ancestors. We do not let innocents die because of old grudges. Your people made us into myths. We chose to become something better." Morrison placed a hand on Vexter's shoulder. "Admiral, we did not come here for revenge. We came because the galaxy is broken, and the hegemony cannot fix it alone. The Vraxian horde is just the beginning. There are worse things in the darkness between stars. Things that your council refuses to see. What do you want from us?" Vexter asked. Morrison's expression was grave. "Right now, I want you to listen, because what I am about to tell you will change everything you believe. And then we need to talk about what is coming. The Vraxians will not accept this defeat. They will return with their entire fleet. 50,000 ships. And when they come, the hegemony will need to make a choice." Vexter straightened his spine. He was a soldier. He had faced death many times. But nothing had prepared him for this moment. Standing before a creature from legend, learning that everything he knew was a lie. "I am listening," he said. Morrison nodded. "Good. Then let us begin." Behind them, human ships continued their rescue operations. On Thesan 4, 3 billion people looked up at the sky and wondered who had saved them. And across the galaxy, the first reports of the battle began to spread. The myths had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The conference room aboard the UEC Resolute was designed for war councils. A massive table dominated the center, surrounded by chairs built for different body types. Holographic displays covered the walls, showing star maps and battle reports. Admiral Vexter sat across from Admiral Morrison. Beside him were 3 other hegemony commanders who had survived the battle at Thesan IV. On the human side, Commander Grant and several senior officers waited in silence. "I need to understand," Vexter said. "Everything I was taught, everything the hegemony believes, it was all lies?" Morrison leaned back in his chair. "Not all of it. Your civilization has achieved remarkable things. Your science, your art, your philosophy. But the foundation was built on fear. And fear makes people do terrible things." He activated a holographic display. Images appeared in the air above the table. Ancient images from 50,000 years ago. When your founders discovered Earth, they found a primitive species just beginning to use tools. We were nothing. Savages throwing rocks at each other. Morrison paused. "But your founders were wise in one way. They understood potential. They looked at our ancestors and saw what we could become. The images shifted. They showed early humans hunting, building, creating. Simple activities that seemed unremarkable. They saw a species that could adapt to any environment. A species that healed from wounds that would kill others. A species that never, ever gave up." Morrison's voice hardened. "And they were afraid. So they made a decision. They sealed our sector of space and spread stories throughout the galaxy. Humans became myths, monsters, fairy tales to frighten children." Vexter felt sick. "We were told the quarantine zone was empty. Dead space, poisoned by ancient wars." "A convenient lie," Grant said. "For 50,000 years, monitoring stations watched Earth. Every time we launched a satellite, your sensors detected it. Every time we sent a probe beyond our solar system, your automated defenses destroyed it. We were prisoners, and we did not even know the walls existed. When did you learn the truth? Vexter asked. Morrison smiled grimly. 212 years ago. A ship called the Pioneer broke through the quarantine barrier by accident. A navigation error sent them too far, and they found one of the monitoring stations. The crew boarded it and discovered everything. The recordings, the orders, the truth. He showed them images of the station. Alien technology covered in dust, surrounded by stars humanity had never seen. The captain of the Pioneer was my grandfather, Morrison said. He brought the evidence back to Earth. The world governments debated for years about what to do. Some wanted immediate war. Others wanted to hide and pretend we never found anything. What did you choose? Vexter asked. We chose patience. Morrison stood and walked to the window. Outside, stars glittered in the endless dark. War would have been easy. Revenge feels good. But we looked at the galaxy and saw something worse than our imprisonment. We saw civilization suffering under the hegemony's neglect. We saw the Vraxian horde devouring worlds while your council debated. We saw slave markets in the Outer Rim, operating openly because no one would stop them. He turned back to face the aliens. We decided that when humanity finally revealed itself, we would not be conquerors. We would be protectors. We spent 2 centuries building our fleet in secret, training our soldiers, preparing for this moment. Grant activated another display. It showed a list of diplomatic transmissions, hundreds of them, spanning decades. We tried to contact you peacefully, she said. 37 times over the past 60 years, we sent messages to the Hegemony Council. We offered friendship, alliance, cooperation. We never received any messages, Vexter said. Your High Chancellor did. Mordith intercepted every transmission and destroyed them. He knew we were real. He was afraid that if the truth came out, he would lose power. Grant's voice was bitter. So he let the galaxy suffer rather than admit the hegemony's founders were wrong. Silence filled the room. Vexter struggled to process everything he had heard. His entire worldview was crumbling around him. The Vraxians, he finally said. You mentioned they would return. Morrison nodded. Our intelligence networks have been monitoring their space for decades. What attacked Thesan 4 was just a raiding fleet, a fraction of their true strength. When they learn what happened here, they will respond with everything they have. The display changed to show Vraxian territory. Red dots marked their fleet positions. 50,000 warships, Morrison said. The entire Vraxian horde united under one banner. They have never faced a real challenge. They have grown arrogant and bloated on easy victories. Now they will come for revenge. And they will not just target us. They will burn every world in their path. Vexter stood. We must warn the Council. We must prepare. Your council is led by a man who would rather watch the galaxy burn than share power with humans, Grant said. Mordith will not help you. He will use this crisis to destroy us both. Then what do we do? Morrison walked to the table and placed both hands on its surface. His eyes met Vexter's, and the alien saw something he had never expected to find in a human. Compassion. We give you a choice, Admiral. The same choice we gave ourselves 200 years ago. You can fight the Vraxians alone and watch your civilization die. Or you can stand beside us and show the galaxy that the future does not have to repeat the past. You would fight beside us? Vexter asked. After everything we did to your people? We are not fighting for the hegemony, Morrison said. We are fighting for the billions of innocent people who will die if the Vraxians are not stopped. We are fighting for the children who will never know peace if this evil is allowed to spread. We are fighting because it is right. Nothing more. nothing less. Vexter thought of Thesson 4. He thought of the families huddled in shelters, waiting for death. He thought of the human soldiers who had risked their lives to save strangers from different species. "I cannot speak for the Council," he said slowly, "but I can speak for myself. I choose to stand beside you." Morrison smiled. It was the first genuine smile Vexter had seen from the human commander. "Then we have work to do, Admiral. The Vraxians will reach hegemony space in 17 days. By then, we need an alliance. And we need to tell the galaxy the truth." "The truth," Vexter repeated. "How do we make them believe?" From the doorway, a familiar voice spoke. "I can help with that." Catherall stepped into the room. His scales were dusty from travel, and his eyes were tired, but his voice was strong. "I have the original texts," the Archivist said. "The proof of everything. And I know how to broadcast it to every corner of the galaxy." Morrison looked at the young alien with respect. "Then let us begin." Outside the ship, the stars waited in silence. And somewhere in the darkness, 50,000 Vraxian ships began to move. The clock was ticking. The Hegemony Council chamber had never seen chaos like this. Representatives from all 12 species shouted at each other across the Great Hall. Some demanded war against the humans. Others begged for alliance. A few simply sat in stunned silence, unable to process what they had witnessed. Catherall's broadcast had reached every corner of the galaxy. The ancient texts, the monitoring station recordings, the truth about humanity's imprisonment. 50,000 years of lies, exposed in a single hour. Billions of citizens watched the evidence with their own eyes. And now they wanted answers. High Chancellor Mordith stood at his throne, his crimson eyes blazing with fury. "This is propaganda," he roared. "Lies created by these human invaders to weaken our unity. I demand that we mobilize our full fleet against this threat." "Against which threat?" Admiral Vexter replied. He stood in the center of the chamber, facing the Chancellor without fear. "The humans saved Thesson 4. They destroyed the Vraxian fleet that would have murdered 3 billion of our citizens. They have done more for our people in one day than you have done in your entire reign." The chamber erupted in fresh arguments. Mordith raised his hand for silence, but the representatives ignored him. His authority was crumbling before his eyes. Outside the chamber, crowds gathered in the streets of Velther Prime. Citizens held signs demanding truth and alliance. Soldiers stationed at government buildings looked at each other with uncertainty. Their orders said to maintain peace. But how could they attack protesters who were asking for the same things they wanted? Inside the chamber, a representative from the Dasani species stood. Her people had been the ones saved at Thesson 4. Her voice shook with emotion. "My homeworld exists because of humans. My children will grow up because humans came when no one else would. If the Chancellor wants war with our saviors, he will have to fight my people first." One by one, other representatives stood in support. The balance of power shifted like sand in a storm. Mordith saw his world collapsing. He turned to his personal guards. "Arrest Admiral Vexter. Arrest the Archivist. They are traitors to the hegemony." The guards did not move. "I gave you an order," Mordith hissed. The guard captain stepped forward. His voice was quiet but firm. "With respect, Chancellor, we serve the hegemony, not you. And the hegemony needs allies, not more enemies." In the silence that followed, Vexter walked up the steps toward the throne. Mordith backed away, his confidence gone. "You are removed from power," Vexter said, "by authority of emergency military protocol. The Vraxian horde is coming with 50,000 ships. The hegemony needs leadership that will protect our people, not sacrifice them for pride." Mordith was taken away by his own guards. He screamed threats and curses, but no one listened. His time was over. Vexthor turned to face the chamber. I do not want permanent power. When this crisis ends, we will hold proper elections. But right now, we have 17 days to prepare for the largest battle in galactic history. I need every ship, every soldier, every resource we can gather. And I need the Council's authority to negotiate alliance with the humans. The vote was unanimous. 3 days later, the combined fleet gathered in the Velthor system. 10,000 human Dreadnoughts held position alongside 8,000 hegemony warships. It was the largest military force ever assembled. Ships of every size and design filled the space between worlds, their weapons ready, their crews prepared. Admiral Morrison stood on the bridge of the Resolute, studying tactical displays. Commander Grant worked beside him, coordinating communications between human and alien vessels. Their fleet commanders are nervous, Grant reported. They have never fought alongside another species. They do not trust us. Can you blame them? Morrison replied. We were their monsters for 50,000 years. Trust takes time. We do not have time. Then we will have to earn it the fast way. Morrison opened a channel to all ships. This is Admiral Morrison to all vessels, human and hegemony alike. In 14 days, the Vraxian horde will arrive in this system. They will bring 50,000 ships. They will bring death and destruction on a scale this galaxy has never seen. He paused, letting his words sink in. Some of you are afraid. That is natural. Some of you do not trust your allies. That is understandable. But I want you to remember something. The Vraxians have never faced a united enemy. They have won their victories against species that fought alone, that refused to cooperate, that valued pride over survival. His voice hardened. We are not alone. Today, for the first time in galactic history, humans and the hegemony stand together. Not as conquerors and subjects, not as myths and believers, but as partners, as friends, as family. Across the fleet, crews listened in silence. The Vraxians think they are unstoppable. They think they can devour us like they devoured so many others. They are wrong, because when they arrive, they will not find scattered prey. They will find a wall of iron and fire and determination, and they will break against it. The channel erupted with cheers. Human and alien voices mixed together in a sound that had never been heard before. On the surface of Velthor Prime, Kethral watched the fleet through a telescope. He had never seen so many ships. He had never imagined that the myths of his childhood would one day fight beside his people. Are you afraid? Asked a human soldier standing nearby. She was young, barely 20 years old, assigned to protect the archivist. Yes, Kethral admitted. Are you not? The soldier smiled, terrified. But my grandfather always said that courage is not the absence of fear. It is the choice to act despite fear. Your grandfather sounds wise. He was. He died building the ships that saved Thesan IV. He never lived to see this day. But I think he knew it would come. Kethral looked back at the stars. So many have sacrificed so much. I hope it will be enough. It has to be, the soldier said. Because if we fail, there will be no one left to try again. 14 days passed in preparation. Human engineers shared technology with hegemony scientists. Alien tacticians learned human battle strategies. Soldiers from different species trained together, learning to fight as one. On the morning of the 15th day, long-range sensors detected the enemy. 50,000 Vraxian warships emerged from jump space at the edge of the system. They spread across the sky like a dark stain, their black hulls absorbing light, their weapons glowing with hunger. The Vraxian Emperor broadcast a message to both fleets. His voice was cruel and confident. Humans and hegemony, united in desperation. It does not matter. You are prey, nothing more. We will feast on your worlds. We will wear your bones as trophies. And we will teach the galaxy what happens to those who resist the Horde." Morrison did not respond with words. He simply gave an order. "All ships forward. Human vessels take the front line. Show them what myths can do." 10,000 dreadnoughts surged toward the enemy. Behind them, 8,000 hegemony ships followed. The final battle had begun, and the galaxy held its breath. The battle lasted 9 hours. 9 hours of fire and death. 9 hours of ships exploding and crews dying. 9 hours that would reshape the galaxy forever. Admiral Morrison commanded from the bridge of the Resolute, his voice steady despite the chaos around him. Human dreadnoughts formed the front line, absorbing the worst of the Raxian assault. Their shields flickered and failed, but they held position. They did not retreat. They did not break. Behind them, hegemony ships provided supporting fire, targeting Raxian vessels that tried to flank the human formation. The two fleets worked together like they had trained for years, not days. But the Raxians had numbers. 50,000 ships against 18,000. Even with superior firepower, the math was brutal. By the 6th hour, the combined fleet had destroyed 30,000 enemy vessels. But they had lost 9,000 of their own. Ships from both species drifted in the void, their crews dead or dying. The Raxians kept coming. Endless waves of black ships hungry for destruction. Commander Grant's voice cut through the battle noise. "Admiral, the evacuation transports. The Raxians are sending a strike force to intercept them." Morrison looked at the display. 12 million civilians were fleeing Velther Prime in transport ships. Slow, unarmed vessels filled with families and children. And now 200 Raxian warships were breaking from the main battle to hunt them. "Who can intercept?" Morrison demanded. "No one, sir. All our ships are engaged. If we pull units from the line, the main formation will collapse." Grant straightened in her chair. "I can do it. Give me 50 ships, and I will hold them off." "You will not survive. Those transports carry 12 million people. Children who have never seen war. Families who just want to live." Grant met his eyes. "Some things are worth dying for." Morrison was silent for a long moment. Then he nodded. "Take the 5th Squadron. Buy them as much time as you can." Grant saluted and left the bridge. Minutes later, 50 human dreadnoughts broke from formation and raced toward the evacuation corridor. The 5th Squadron met the Raxian strike force at the edge of the civilian lane. 200 against 50. The odds were impossible. Grant did not care about odds. "All ships, weapons free. Nothing gets through to those transports. Nothing." The battle was brutal and short. Human ships threw themselves at the enemy, blocking shots meant for civilian vessels. One by one, the dreadnoughts fell. But they took Raxians with them. For every human ship destroyed, 3 enemy vessels burned. Grant's ship, the UE Valor, was the last to fall. Her hull was torn open, her weapons drained, her crew dead or wounded. But behind her, 12 million civilians escaped to safety. With her final breath, Grant sent a message to Morrison. "Transports clear. Mission complete. Tell my grandmother I did good." The channel went silent. On the Resolute, Morrison lowered his head for just a moment. Then he looked up at the main display and saw something impossible. Space was tearing open again. Not enemy ships. Something else. 20,000 human vessels emerged from jump space in perfect formation. The reserve fleet. Ships from every colony, built in secret over 2 centuries. The final piece of humanity's plan, hidden until the moment of greatest need. Admiral Morrison opened a channel to all frequencies. "This is Admiral Morrison. To the Raxian Horde, you wanted to know what myths can do. Now you see. We are humanity. We do not surrender. We do not break. And we never, ever give up." The reserve fleet crashed into the Vraxian formation like a hammer. Fresh ships with full weapons and eager crews tore through exhausted enemy lines. The Vraxians, who had never known fear, finally understood terror. The battle turned in minutes. Vraxian ships began to retreat, but there was nowhere to run. Human and hegemony vessels surrounded them, cutting off escape routes, destroying any ship that tried to flee. In 3 hours, it was over. Of the 50,000 Vraxian warships, fewer than 5,000 survived. They drifted in space, their weapons disabled, their engines dead. The Vraxian Emperor's flagship was captured intact. The Emperor himself was taken prisoner, dragged from his throne by human marines who treated him with contempt but not cruelty. Admiral Vexter brought his damaged ship alongside the Resolute. He boarded the human flagship and found Morrison standing at the observation window, looking at the wreckage of the greatest battle in history. "It is done," Vexter said. "The Horde is broken. The galaxy is safe." Morrison did not turn around. "We lost 11,000 ships, human and hegemony combined. Millions of good people who will never go home. Commander Grant? She saved 12 million lives. She was the best officer I ever knew." They stood in silence for a long moment. "What happens now?" Vexter asked. Morrison finally turned. His eyes were tired, but there was hope in them. "Now we build something new. Not the hegemony. Not a human empire. Something better. A true alliance where every species has a voice. Where myths and reality stand side by side." 1 month later, representatives from every species gathered on Velther Prime. Humans walked among aliens for the first time in 50,000 years. They shared meals, told stories, and learned to see each other as people rather than legends. The new Galactic Alliance was formed with a simple charter: protect the innocent, defend the weak, and never let fear divide them. Again, Kethral was named the first ambassador to Earth. He would spend the rest of his life studying human culture and writing the true history first. Contact: Admiral Vexter retired from military service. He wrote a book about the war, dedicated to Commander Grant and all those who gave their lives for a future they would never see. Admiral Morrison returned to Earth as a hero, but he refused parades and medals. Instead, he visited the families of every crew member who died under his command. He told them that their loved ones had changed the galaxy. On the anniversary of the battle, a monument was built in orbit around Velther Prime. It listed the names of every ship and crew member lost in the war. Human names beside alien names, united in sacrifice. Kethral gave a speech at the dedication ceremony. Billions watched across the galaxy. For 50,000 years, we told ourselves that humans were myths, stories, legends too impossible to be real. We were wrong. They were always real. They were always watching. And when we needed them most, they came. He paused, looking at the stars. They did not come as conquerors. They did not come for revenge. They came because they believed in something greater than fear. They believed that strangers could become friends, that enemies could become family, that the darkness between stars could be filled with light. He smiled, thinking of Commander Grant and all those who had given everything. They showed us what myths can do. Now it is our turn to show them what we can become together. Above the monument, human and alien ships patrolled side by side. The galaxy was at peace. The future was bright, and humanity, silent for 50,000 years, had finally found its voice.